Good afternoon and welcome back to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. And you are looking at the human resource module. So we have configured the system, we're looking into the processes and some of the functionalities that are available now. Just as a reminder, if you have just simply stumbled upon this, do make sure that you go and look at some of my other videos because they will be very helpful in terms of me explaining my experience, sharing my experience, of course, and making sure that you're up to date with some of the implementations that I have done, which might be relevant to you as you try to walk into this IT space within the Dynamics 365. So as a functional consultant, it's always a good idea to learn from other people's experiences, learn from different ideas that you can use that had worked for previous implementations. And also, I want to give a heads up. There are quite a few people who actually would like to see and make ask me about questions related to how to get into this IT space. So I do have a short service, you could say, a quick service that I'd like to help out with people who wants to get into this space. I give them my experience. I share my feelings on how I got into this. And in the description box of this, feel free to go into it and then send me a resume, and then I'll be more than happy to actually look it over, give you the insights because I've done so many implementations where I know exactly how and what the HR manager is looking for through the applicant tracking system. So I'm more than happy to look over, reproduce your resume and then clean it up in a way that would allow you to go into this space, and of course even give you some insights on how to get the certification. So feel free to do that. So moving on with this video, we're going to simply touch base on the checklist, task maintenance, and worker task assignment. So these are quite a different, totally different modules, you could say, or sub-modules within the human resources. So that's why I'm not going to touch on this just yet, but I want to explain you the context behind it, just so when we get into creating checklists and the uses of it, then you can refer back to this video and know exactly how things get tied together. So that's what we're trying to do in these videos after we finish configuration, basically to tie things together from a process perspective. So if you click on the checklist, it's empty for now. And the reason it's empty is because Bill has not have any or did not have any tasks assigned to them. So from a process perspective, we've talked about, when you hire an employee, you can create a checklist. And that's the piece where we didn't talk too much about how you create the checklist because it's meant for a different video. But in this case, if you were to assign a checklist when you hire an employee, which would be like an onboarding checklist, it is basically a set of tasks. And if Bill was part of that checklist, his task would have shown up here. So a task would have been, so if I click on apply checklist, for instance, there's an onboarding checklist that has been configured in the system. So if I select this and move it here and apply it, then there will be relevant tasks to Bill that would be assigned to him. And the due dates and the status and everything would be auto-populated. The status, of course, I would have to end up changing as I complete the task. And as I mean, which is Bill in this case, because I am referring to Bill. So the checklist is very crucial. It's important to keep track of the things that are happening because there's a lot of moving parts when you hire an employee. So you want to keep track of that. So we'll talk a bit more when we actually configure a checklist. We're moving for our videos that are yet to show up. Same thing with the task maintenance. It's a very similar concept because a task is actually, you can assign a task, a separate task outside of the checklist. So a task is created first, then it is assigned to a checklist, and then you create a checklist and assign that to all relevant people. But a checklist will contain all sorts of tasks assigned to all sorts of different people. Whereas a task maintenance is basically my tasks. As Bill is what I'm referring to. So Bill tasks, all of them that are relevant to him that have been assigned to him, and you could see the process type is also onboarding, so it could be offboarding or transitions or any business process. So some of these things we didn't talk about, but these are basically processes that are applicable to human resources, and some of the tasks that might be applicable to Bill as he has to complete them uh, to move forward with the candidate. So we'll talk a little bit more when we create the video about creating checklists and whatnot. And the last piece is the worker task assignment. So very similar concept, right? So that's what I've been complaining quite a bit about, in my previous videos, where I said that things are very repetitive at times, and I don't see a reason why would we need to use something like this when we already have an onboarding checklist, for instance. So in this case, you can create a checklist or a task for yourself. But of course, creating a task for yourself isn't something that that would be beneficial in this sense, because nobody else might be able to see it if they don't have the license to access your profile. So that is a crucial gap that Microsoft needs to understand, that a lot of times Bill may not have a license associated with creating a new task. Only the HR managers might have a license to create tasks for all the employees, but these tasks may not show up on the employee self-service workspace. So there are some disconnects, unfortunately, within this module, but these will be addressed as you start playing around with the system, as the things start getting updated, because this is it's like you could say it's a new module, and a lot of things are coming in, a lot of things are changing, and Microsoft has been trying to keep up with new functionalities that they're releasing. In any case, these are the three things that I wanted to talk about. Not much, you could say, required in order to configure the system in that sense, but you want to make sure that you understand just the gist of it, and then we'll start connecting this to when we actually talk about the checklist and how to create onboarding and offboarding checklists.